Did you know that vegetables might not actually be good for you? Let's talk about it. Man, if only I knew about anti-nutrients when I was little, I would have told my mom I wasn't eating my vegetables because they were hurting my intestinal barrier. Contrary to what your mother has been telling you since you were little, you may not actually want to eat all of your vegetables. Recently, the nutrition world has begun to change its mind about the benefits of vegetables. Some nutrition gurus are advocating for removing all plant matter from the diet. While that decision may be slightly extreme, there is actually some solid rationale supporting its reasoning. The reason some advocate against eating vegetables entirely is due to the presence of non-nutritive compounds. These are often referred to as anti-nutrients. They're produced inside of the plants, and they actually fight off predators that try to eat them in the wild. When a predator eats the plant, these nutrients cause them to get very sick and sometimes are even deadly to small animals, and it perturbs them from eating the plants in the future. While these compounds typically are not in a big enough dose to kill a human, they can actually cause some negative ramifications inside of our body. This is actually why most plants in the wild are not actually edible, and you can't just go into a forest and start eating whatever you want. The vegetables you find in the grocery store have actually been specifically chosen because they have the least amount of, well, deadliness. That said, these vegetables still contain a small amount of these inflammatory compounds. The problem here is that two individuals on different sides of the dietary spectrum will tell you two entirely different stories about the same compound found in a vegetable. For example, let's talk about polyphenols. Carnivore diet advocates can list off all the reasons that polyphenols will harm your intestinal barrier and cause adverse endocrine cascades. Conversely, polyphenols are one of the most positively spoken about components of plants by many vegetable advocates. It all comes down to the concept of hormesis. Hormesis is the idea that small amounts of inflammation are actually beneficial for your health. In the face of small amounts of inflammation, the body is able to properly reduce and recover from the stress that it causes. Not only that, but the body is so smart that if it has the requisite resources, it will get just a little bit stronger from the inflammation in order to be better prepared in the future to fight it off. A great example is exercise. Not enough exercise, and there is no signal to get stronger. On the other hand, too much exercise can cause so much inflammation that you actually begin to lose strength and fitness because you cannot fully recover from the stress. But as most of you know, there is a sweet spot for exercise, in which small amounts of stress make you stronger as long as you are able to recover. The same is true with vegetables. If you don't eat any vegetables, you will not have any of the hormetic effects that certain plant compounds can cause. For some, that's actually necessary. If an individual already has such profound amounts of inflammation from other sources, such as autoimmune disease or another disease, the inflammation caused by plants may actually put them over their capacity to recover. And at that point, they are out of the Goldilocks zone and begin to break down instead of build up. If we are unable to neutralize the inflammation and detoxify certain compounds that are found in plants, it's just like over-exercising, but with your mouth. However, most of the time when we eat plants, we'll enter that Goldilocks amount of stress, where we can expose ourselves to a mild amount of stress and come out stronger in the end. With that being said, each person's threshold for these compounds is going to be very different, but an easy way to figure out where your threshold is would simply be to assess how you respond to a certain amount of vegetables. If you reduce the number of vegetables you eat and you actually begin to feel better, then you may have simply not been able to benefit from the hormetic effect because you were eating too much vegetables. Now, let's say you cut back on the number of vegetables that you were eating and you don't really see any effects at all. That means that the number and amount of vegetables that you were eating previously put you into that Goldilocks zone where vegetables are actually giving you a positive hormetic effect. And now remember, this doesn't just come down to the amount of vegetables you eat, but it also comes down to the type of vegetables you eat. Most people do not respond well to a large amount of raw spinach and kale, but may do great with cooked carrots, potatoes, and other vegetables like that. Now, let's say you want to find out how much is too much. Well, this is pretty easy to do, but may not always be the most fun. At this point, you would simply just keep increasing the amount of vegetables you eat until you find some sort of adverse outcome. I personally see no reason that you would want to try this, but let's say you did, there are some signs that you can look out for. The most predominant are probably going to be digestive stress, such as an upset stomach, cramping, and bloating, or cognitive stress, such as brain fog and inability to think as well as you used to. I cannot tell you which vegetables and how much are best for you, or even if you should be eating vegetables at all. I probably wouldn't even be able to tell you what is best for me. But I think contrary to what your mother has been telling you since you were little, some of the causes of your health issues could actually be simply just eating too many vegetables. Now, I don't just go around and recommend every single person should be on a carnivore or a plant-free diet, but I would recommend thinking about your health symptoms, and if there are things that you simply have not been able to resolve, one possible solution could be changing or reducing the amount of vegetables that you eat. And now this is not a long-term plan. It's an acute plan to solve an issue, and the goal is to be able to eat as many vegetables as you could ever want and not have any negative ramifications because your body can deal with that inflammation. The goal is to become a digestive machine. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you next episode.